So I just went there and there was a lot of confusion. But you all checked yourselves and you came here. Good. Now half the class is in the other room. So they'll be joining. so sorry about the confusion. Huh. So we are all here for HUL 239, correct? Can you just sort of by a show of hands let me know how many of you are in your second year? Okay, that's a pretty big section. And for how many of you is this your first literature course? For how many of you is this your second literature course? And can you tell me what you did before this? Sorry?
Intro to literature.
Intro to literature?
Selected topics.
Selected topics. And उसमें क्या किया था?
It was more about the Indian literature from 1857 to 1940.
Oh. Who was this with?
Leonard Dickens.
Okay. Any others? Sorry? Rise of the Novel. Okay. Okay. But for most of you, this is your first literature. Okay. Okay. So this is it's a fairly basic course in the sense that I'm not expecting you to read very difficult texts or do some very or even do a lot of reading. But you have to be prepared to read. Okay, I mean this is a literature course, so what we basically do is read. We won't have very huge novels. If it is a large novel, we'll try and do segments from it. Okay, parts of it. We'll also do short stories. We may do some poetry as well. I know the course is called Indian Fiction in English, but we'll use that term a little more in a more open way to include not just fiction but also poetry if necessary and short stories. Just to get it clear, just to get it out of the way, what does fiction mean to you? What is the definition of fiction?
I mean, not real. I mean, something which has been made up.
Something that is not real. So, an account of the Kargil war written by a journalist,
It's real.
that would be non-fiction. A book about how to climb the success ladder in your workplace. What would that be? Non-fiction. A play by Shakespeare.
Fiction. 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 Fiction.
Fiction. So yes, you're right. It's not based on actual real events. Though some of his plays have been based on actual events, but we treat it as fiction. But generally, when we say fiction, we imply novels. Okay, novels in particular. We could include short stories as well. But drama generally is sort of seen as a category separate from fiction. Yes? Okay. So the reason for that is quite obvious, right? The ways in which you study drama. First of all, drama originally was not even meant to be studied. Right? I mean, we might find Shakespeare really difficult now, or Kalidas or whoever, and study them in our books and look up the difficult words and so on. But believe it or not, they were actually meant to be light entertainment. Right? In their time, at the time that they were performed, they were like the they were like Bollywood. It was like going to watch a Bollywood film, right? So you don't see that as something difficult that you have to study and underline, underline the important passages and look up meanings. No, right? So drama was meant as a performative form and a popular performative form. And down the centuries, it has become something that we also study. Okay. But when you say fiction, you are referring primarily to novels and short stories. Yes, poetry, drama are kind of, they fall outside the ambit of fiction. So this course is titled Indian Fiction in English, and by English what we mean or how we interpret it is that we'll be studying texts in English. Now they may or may not originally have been written in English. Yeah. So we'll also be reading a number of texts that have been translated. They may have been written in Hindi or Kannada or Marathi, right? But we will take that to mean, Indian writing in English. Yes. We will also, of course, be studying texts that have been written in English. Okay, so this is it's a broad kind of understanding of the term. Now, Indian writing is something we should all know, right? I mean, we should all be quite familiar with what this term implies. So, can you just give me a quick sense of the kinds of books you have read that come under this, this definition of Indian writing? So just generally the kinds of things you've read. Swami and Friends, okay. R.K. Narayan, when was it written? But broadly, some idea. Was it written in the last decade? Was it written in the 1980s?
80s, 90s.
80s, 90s? Anyone else? बहुत पुराना है, तो 80s, 90s होगा. Anyone else? Yes. So I don't know the exact dates myself, but yes, it was definitely pre-independence, the 30s and 40s, right? A long time before the 80s and 90s. But generally, yes, that is Narayan is supposed to be R.K. Narayan who wrote that entire, he kind of created this space, this fictional space called Malgudi. Yes, and it became very popular because there was a Doordarshan series, a television series based on the stories there. Right? So it's a fictional sort of small town / village. It's this very quaint sort of space that he made popular by his stories. Right? So these are simple stories about ordinary day-to-day lives of simple people, and the main protagonist there is this little boy, this young 7-8-year-old boy called Swami, right? And the kinds of shenanigans he gets up to. So yes, R.K. Narayan is one writer who does fall, who writes Indian fiction in English quite literally. He writes it in English. Who else?
Adventures of Toto, but I can't remember the author.
Ruskin Bond? Okay, yes. So Ruskin Bond is also very popular. Again, similar. I mean, he's more contemporary. He's still writing, though he's quite elderly now. He has been writing for the last 40, 50 years now, or more probably. But yes, usually short stories, though he's also written novels, and usually about young characters. Young protagonists, children, and their adventures. He himself is based in Dehradun, Masuri, right? And he loves that part of the country. So a lot of his stories tend to be based in those, you know, in those hills. So okay, Ruskin Bond is another. Do you read? Does anyone read any language other than Hindi and English? Anyone? In your school, if you studied in other sort of, not in North India, any other languages, Bengali, Tamil, Telugu? So do you read? Are you fluent in it? Yeah. Any Telugu writer that you know? Okay. What's the name? Okay, and have they been translated into English? Do you know? You don't know. Yeah. Okay, and anything interesting you've read in that? I mean, do you read fiction in that? Huh?
The very famous writer from North India. His name was William Davish.
Okay.
So he wrote a short story about the society and how the change over time.
Okay. Okay. In Urdu?
It's in Urdu. Most partly, he wants to text it in Urdu, but the thing is the same in Punjabi.
Okay. Actually, I mean,
So it's out of Punjabi that the other side is.
right. And often the script and the language, so the script may be Urdu, right? But the language itself is Punjabi, right? So that's probably what's happening here. Have you heard of Premchand? Did you have anything by him prescribed in your textbooks, maybe? So he's he's a famous Hindi and Urdu writer who has been translated very, very widely in many languages, including English. But also this huge divide that we have in our minds now between Hindi and Urdu. Hindi is an Indian language or whatever. Hindi is the language of the Hindus. Urdu is a sort of Persianized Muslim language. That is actually it's a false sort of binary, because in the 1930s and 40s people wrote in both. I mean, Premchand is a great example of that. A lot of his stories, he would write them in Urdu and then translate them himself into Hindi. Right? So this was a very fluid kind of line. It wasn't as rigid as we now have come to think of it. And certainly, this language was not so rigidly associated with particular religions. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हिंदू सिर्फ हिंदी ही लिखते थे या बोलते थे. They also were very fluent in Urdu and vice versa. Yeah. Okay, I need some more names. Yeah.
I have 3 names. One of them is Malti Joshi. I have read, I think, one book or two. I don't remember exact names, but my grandmother is, and they're mostly Hindi.
Madhuri Joshi.
Malti Joshi.
Malti Joshi.
Malti Joshi.
Okay.
I think the books are based on the era of around independence, the kind of society that major societal issues that women used to face. The story is centered on that. Then we have Sudha Murthy, quite obviously she's in Kannada and English both. Then we have Rabindranath Tagore. I remember the story Kabuliwala, that was in my school. He's written much more.
Yes. Kabuliwala is famous. No, we all read it. Sudha Murthy is very, very prolific, and she writes now. She kind of bases her stories on folk tales and legends, and tries to make them accessible to a young audience. What about the whole mythology writers, the modern, all of these? Do you read them? Devdutt Patnaik, and there is Amish Tripathi. Any others?
Amiga Natha, she's quite recent.
Okay. And what does she write?
She is basically compiling more or less the Sanskrit original versions of both Mahabharata and Ramayana. One of the major differences of her work on Mahabharata, David Patnaik also written about Mahabharata and Ramayana, but he's focused also a lot on the local meaning and variations of both the stories, and he has his own psychological conclusions and cultural conclusions of both of them, which is mentioned in different segments of his book. And he also goes with the flow of the story. Ami Ganatra is more focused on the original Sanskrit version, kind of reviving how originally it was written by the Maharishi. And she has her own understanding, as in the way she puts it in her interviews is there is a westernized understanding of the Indian philosophy and there is an Indian understanding of the Indian philosophy. So her focus is more on understanding the minor concepts of Indian philosophy in the Indian classical Vedic tradition, instead of putting it on the Western paradigm, creating an Indian paradigm. That's more of a philosophy. So these are very different works. They have their own way of explaining the same thing.
Okay. Okay. I should look up this author.
She has actually beautiful explanations of her. I think they're an hour or two long. Pretty good.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes.
does Harry Potter and all these fall into this category of fiction?
Definitely. Yeah. It falls under the category of fiction.
I have read a book called The Song of Fire and Ice.
Yeah. That's this one, no?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, no? So these are all definitely they fall under the category of fiction and under a more specific subcategory of fantasy fiction. And generally, I mean, these sort of books are quite popular among you youngsters. I find that a lot of people your age like books like that. So I mean, so you can name other people you've read, not just Indian also. Harry Potter पढ़ते हो? And what's there's also another series, no? Lord of the Rings. Do you read that now, or is that's not so popular anymore? Okay, so look, basically, you should like to read. You should enjoy reading. If you're going to like doing this course. Like I said, it won't be very difficult or very complicated, but you should at least enjoy reading, because every week you will be reading quite a bit. You will be asked to read quite a bit. Whether you do it or not is up to you. But that is going to be the requirement. Yes. So if you feel that it's not something you enjoy, or that it's a big, it feels like a big headache. कि 50 पेज की कहानी पढ़नी पड़ेगी या 100 पेज का नॉवल का एक्सट्रैक्ट पढ़ना पड़ेगा, then think again, okay, reconsider if this is the right course for you. There are a couple of things I want to talk about, about the course itself, the idea of Indian writing and so on. But maybe before that, we should get the numbers and the structure and stuff out of the way. Yeah. So let me just tell you what the course, how it's going to be structured in terms of marks and so on. I'll also put it, I'll post it on Moodle, but make a note of it right now. By the way, those at the back, can you hear me? Is there anyone having difficulty in hearing me? Okay, if at any point you want me to speak up, please do. And also, there are lots of spaces here. So, you don't have to be sitting at the back. There is a lot of space here. Sorry, say that again. Ramachandra Guha, historian. But he doesn't write fiction. He's a historian. Yes.
What is the general difference between fiction and drama?
The general difference between fiction and drama is that fiction is meant to be, at the most simplest level. Fiction is designed to be read by one person in solitude. है ना? A book is meant for one reader. कि आप book को खोलें और आप उसको पढ़ें अपने मन में, है ना? Drama is designed as a more public and social act. It's like going to the movies. Yes, you're doing it in a large group of people, and it's performative. No, it's being performed in front of you. So that's the fundamental difference. Now, of course, a play can be based on an imaginary story. It often is. So it is fictional in that sense. But by the category of fiction, we mean something different from that of a public performance. Okay, so now you just have these 2 exams, right? Earlier there used to be 3. Now there is a mid-sem and an end-sem exam. So our marks distribution is even. It's equal for both, 40-40. Okay, 40 for the mid-sem, 40 for the end-sem. In both your mid-sem and your end-sem exam, there will be a 10-mark quiz component. Okay, so these will be one-word answers, right? Where you can get them all right. You can get 10 out of 10 in that. You should know that in subjects like literature, you don't. It's not really common to get full marks. For the simple reason that there's no ऐसा कोई वो सवाल नहीं है ना कि solve कर लिया और right answer है. This is the right answer, and you can prove it beyond doubt. And nothing else can be the right answer. In cases like that, you can get full marks. But humanities subjects, humanities courses are not like this. It's about how you present your understanding of the text, how you present your argument. So here, yes, if you do a really good job, you will get high marks, but don't expect to get 10 out of 10 to milne chahiye. However, in that quiz component, it is possible to get full marks. So take that seriously. That will be based on close reading of texts. So the quiz questions will obviously refer to specific details from the things that we study. So 40 plus 40 for the mid-sem and the end-sem, and then 20 marks for your tutorial presentation. So we will be having tutes, and I would like to propose that because schedules are so, you all have very different schedules, and it's very hard to find slots that work. I think most of you or all of you do not have anything lined up after the class on Monday and Thursday. From 6:50 to 9:50? But how can you have a class from 6:15?
It starts at 6:15. I have a 3-hour course.
What is this?
MSF 306.
It happens once in a week.
It happens only once a week.
Mondays.
On Mondays.
Okay. So but for most of you, you don't have anything,
Yes.
right? So let us have our tutorials from 6:30 to 7:30, right? Just after the class. Okay? We'll have it in this room, right? And we would like you to make presentations. Okay, short presentations on which you will be marked. We'll give you all the details, later. I should also introduce you to. Can you just stand up? The three of you, Rensa, you will say. So Mihir, Balagopal, and Rensa. Okay, they are the three sort of points of contact. Right? They will also be sort of taking the tutorials as well as in general. If you have issues, you should write into them. Okay, write to all of us actually. Right? Anything. CC all 4 of us with any query that you might have. Okay? Yeah. Thanks. So we'll give you more details about the tunes. They will start from not next week, but the following week. Okay, 5th August. And we need you to, at least for the first week, we are going to put you in groups. Okay, groups of two each. And 2 people will kind of work together as a group and make a presentation on any text that you like. So, isme there are no rules here. This is not associated with the text we are discussing in the class, in the lectures.
Even non-fiction?
Not non-fiction. So the only rule here is that these have to be works of fiction. Okay? No non-fiction. They do not even have to be Indian texts. Okay? So if you want to present on something that you read, your Harry Potter or feel free to do that. It can be any text that you and your partner have read and like. You can actually pick a text, read it, and then make a presentation on it. It could be a text you've been wanting to read for some time. Something you may have heard.
Comics are also
Yes, but okay, but what sort of comics? Yes, I agree.
Comics are usually fiction.
Yeah. So they can be comics. They can be comics. Yes.
And we have to make a presentation twice a week.
So one person will only do it once. Each of you will only do it once. Okay, so basically you will be divided into groups of 2 each, right? And each group has to make one presentation in the duration of the course. एक बार करके you're done, you're free. Okay, but you do have to participate, you do have to sit. ये नहीं कि अब मेरा तो हो गया, अब I'm never going to attend a tute again, right? Because there is still attendance and participation. So the structure of these presentations is that each group will get 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. Yeah, realistically speaking. Because it's such a short time, don't waste your time with PowerPoint. Because उसको set up करने में और वो सब करने में ही time निकल जाता है. So no PowerPoint. Just so the 2 of you come up, tell us about this book that is that you like, that you're excited about. Tell us what excites you about it, but don't give us the summary. कि इसमें फिर ये हुआ, फिर वो हुआ, फिर वो हुआ, वो नहीं. You need to talk about it in terms of its technique, right? How is it written? What is the style in which it is written? And that is also something we are going to be focusing on in our classes, in our lectures, right? How are things written about, right? What is the method? What is the technique? What is the narrative style? And the easiest way to to understand that is to simply sort of see a very useful sort of way to classify this is to talk about the difference between plot and story. It is, do you just want to take a guess? What are these 2 things? Are they the same thing? So what's the difference? What's the difference between the plot?
The plot is just the sequence of events that's happening, and story, and actually a lot of other things. For example, the setting of there's a scene going on. So in the plot, you're just explaining what's happening, and jobs, and something is going on. But in a story, you have to explain the kind of atmosphere that is there, what the characters may be thinking, feeling, and all that also is a part of it. So
Yes.
a plot is a part of the story.
Yes, you're absolutely right. For those of you who couldn't hear it, the plot, yes, it's just the basic sort of structure of the story. Or you might say it's the skeleton, right? While the story is the flesh that you add to it. Now I could give you some, I could give you a plot outline. Imagine this is a creative writing class, okay, and I come in and I give you some basic sort of, I say, okay, there are these 4 characters and, broadly this is what happens, A marries B, divorces C, goes on a world tour and then dies. Okay, this is the bare bones. Now you make a story. So the plot is just this single one plot, right? This is the only plot that I have given to all of you. But if there are 100 people in the class, we will get 100 different stories, right? Each of you will interpret it and write about it and structure your story differently. You may choose to begin at the end and give us a flashback. Think about the films you see. Think about the ways in which, the action unfurls. You may choose to, bring together the present and the past, right? You may choose to begin with a dream. Right? There are hundreds of ways in which you may flesh out the bare bones of the plot. Right? That is the story. And how you create that story is what we are interested in. That is what we will be studying in this class. How does a writer, how does a narrator create the story? What are the choices that the narrator has made? What are the choices that the author has made? Because potentially we have infinite choices, no? ऐसे भी लिख सकते हैं, वैसे भी लिख सकते हैं, वैसे भी लिख सकते हैं. पर ऐसे ही क्यों लिखा? What is the effect? What is the outcome? Yes? So that is what studying literature means. Studying literature is not just reading novels. It is about reading, of course, reading novels and poems and everything else. But it doesn't just stop there. Because reading is something we do anyway, ना? उसके लिए क्लास की क्या ज़रूरत है? उसको पढ़ने की क्या ज़रूरत है? पढ़ते यही है उसमें कि how it has been written, how language has been used, why have certain words been chosen and not certain others, right? So when you make your presentation, your short presentation on a book of your choice, look at it not just in terms of the story, okay, this happened and then that happened and that happened, but how the story has been put together, how it has been structured. Yeah? So this is for 20 marks and we can talk more about it. Okay, and right now let me just give you the sort of broad outline and then we can discuss this further if you like. So this is your marks breakup, 40, 40, 20. Yeah? And in that it will be basically 20 marks for quiz, right? 60 for the exam and 20 for your tutorial presentation. Now, you do also after you make your presentation, within 2 days, you need to email us a written version. Okay, so because we will put it through Turnitin to check for plagiarism. Unfortunately, it's very, very tempting to plagiarize, no, these days, because everything is out there, and it's always written so much better than we could write it often. So it's just much easier to copy and paste. But let's try not to do that, and just talk about your own, your own kind of encounter with the text.
But thing is that I'm not very well versed with the vocabularies to explain in the class. So I would be requiring some, not in a way of Tucci, but get a guidance on how to have my own presentation. So
yes, and we are happy to discuss it with you before your presentation. That's perfectly okay. But see, part of it is this is a learning exercise. So I mean, obviously, I know that this is not something you are well versed in. For a lot of you, this is your first literature course. How can how can you be versed in it? But this is it's a learning process, right? So by doing we learn, right? So see it as being kind of being pushed into the deep end, doing your best, doing the best you can, and also learning from other people's presentations as well, right? So as well as in the classroom discussions, right? That will also, I mean, you'll be able to see how what it means to analyze a text. So don't worry about कि मुझे नहीं आता. Nobody is expecting that you are competent in it. Not at all. That's why we are here. Right? So see it as a kind of adventure, if you like, or an experiment. But pick a book that you really have liked and try to share your excitement about that book with us. So that itself is a good place to start. No, if you're working on something that you yourself like, that usually makes it a more interesting exercise. Yes. Your attendance policy is 75%. Okay, you should have 75% attendance, and if you don't, then you will get in the final marks, the final grading, you will get a grade below the one you are getting. Okay, so that's
both classes and for you.
Yes. So for both classes and tubes, the attendance policy is 75%. And the attendance, I believe Timble is not functioning, so we will be taking attendance on Moodle. Is that right? So after class, we'll your names will be called out. So you need to tell us your best. Okay. Until maybe Timble will become operational again. Let's see. But until then, attendance has to be marked. Are there any brave souls who would like to volunteer for the first week's tutorials, especially among those who have done literature courses before? Wonderful. So tell me your name. Anupriti. Okay. And do you have a partner in mind? Somebody here that you know, or would anyone like to join her? This is especially for those of them that there were quite a few of you who've done courses. Why don't you do it? And yeah, great, wonderful. So after class we'll just sort of note down your names. So that's we actually need more groups. We need 6 groups for the first week, because 3 groups will be presenting in each tutorial. It's a large class, so we do have to kind of cater to a rather large number, but it's not undoable. So I mean, you don't have to put up your hands right now, but do consider the possibility of making your presentation early on, and then it also frees you up. No, I mean, that's the bonus. You get then you don't have to worry about it. It's out of the way. I should tell you one thing though. The tutorial presentation is for 20 marks. This really is your chance to gain marks, right? I mean, 20 marks is quite a substantial chunk, right? And if you do a decent job, it is your chance to get marks. However, I want to tell you that it will be marked quite strictly. So if you just come up and just say something and कि बस बोल दिया और हो गया, तो then don't expect कि just because you have come and said something you will get marks. Your presentation will be evaluated on the basis of its content, right? On the basis of what you are saying about that text. And the reason we want to be quite strict about that is because you are being given such a wide range to choose from. Nobody is imposing anything on you. The only thing we are imposing on you is that आपको आके 10 मिनट के लिए बोलना है, right? That's all we are asking you to do. 10 मिनट के लिए a book of have your choice from anywhere in the world. So that's a pretty, broad kind of canvas to choose from, right? Nothing is being imposed. So, which is why once you have chosen a book, then please make sure you do a decent job with it. Okay? So, if you don't, then you will get 1 or 2 or 3 out of 20, and that will be a pity, no? Because you could have done so much better, right? So, try to use this opportunity. Yes.
Marks will also be for attendance to attend, and once you have given your attendance, you have to wait for others to also present. So the single presentation contain 20 marks, or some marks will be for presentation and some marks will be for attendance to attend the tutorial.
Well, there are no marks for attendance, but in general there is that attendance policy, no, for 75%.
So tutorial doesn't contain marks, so that means only a single presentation will contain 20 marks.
Yes.
Only one time we will be having
Yes.
allowed to give the presentation.
Yes.
And we have to wait on Monday and Tuesday, Thursday.
Monday and Thursday after class.
No, but the course credit is of 4 credits, so the 3 credit will be of a 3 hours lecture and 1 will be for tutorial. So the tutorial classes will count 2 hours, but according to the credit system, only 1 hour should be given for the tutorial at max. That's just a question.
No, you're right. You're right. I didn't think of that.
They'll be divided into groups. So two groups will be meeting us on one particular day, and 2 other groups will be meeting us on say Thursday, not on Monday.
So we will be leaving, one group will leave on Thursday if they have attended the Monday.
Yes. So basically you will either be in the Monday group or the Thursday group. Okay. So like somebody here who has classes on Monday, you can join the Thursday group. So for you it will just be once a week. For us it will be twice a week.
And grading will be absolute or relative?
I don't know. Why do you people always ask this question? It took me many years even to figure out what it meant. Now I do know what it means, but I don't know. ठीक है, जब end में जब marks सामने आते हैं उस वक्त ही पता लगता है. अगर if people are getting above 80, then obviously it will be absolute. But sometimes it happens that people do not get above 80 at all, and in that case you might make it whatever it is, relative, right? So let's not worry about it. Okay? That shouldn't affect anything. We have a long way to go. So please just start getting prepared to read a lot. Start getting prepared to think, about texts in a more in a more interesting way, right? Not just in terms of what happened, उसके बाद क्या हुआ और उसके बाद क्या हुआ, right? But in terms of how a text is put together, how it is structured. Okay?
Ma'am?
Yes.
Is the tutorials attendance separate from the lectures attendance?
Yes, I think so. Yes, because you're going to be 2 different groups, no? So yes, the tutorial attendance is separate from the lecture attendance. So that will be taken at the end of the June. Any other questions? So very soon you will get all this information on Moodle about the group you are in. Okay, we are going to give you a partner. Right? So we are also going to give you a date on which your presentation has to be. It's only for the first week that I'm asking people to they can have their choice of partner if they want. Right? But subsequently you are just going to be given a date and the name of your partner. So get together with your partner, prepare your presentation, figure out what text you're going to be presenting on. Right? And if you are not here on the day of your presentation, then you've lost your chance. There is no scope for rescheduling. Right? There are 150 people enrolled in this class. Yes, each of you has to make that presentation. So there is no scope for rescheduling. So please don't कि अच्छा ये मुझे ये दिन तो मेरा कुछ और है तो मैं नहीं कर सकता, I'll do it again, I'll do it some other time. There is no other time. This is the only time. So if once you've been given a slot, please take it seriously and make sure you come and do what you're required to do. Alright? Okay. Now, so we've got this out of the way. Right? I'll also write it up and post it on Moodle so you have it clearly in front of you. But any doubts or questions about this aspect? Yes.
How do we make our availability known that we want to present on this day? Like if we want to present in the first week.
Oh, if you want to present in the first week, just meet us. No, after class. Just go to Mihir, Bala, and put down your names, give us your date. So for the first week, you just get in touch with us right away. Subsequently, in the next few days, we'll send across a chart, right, with your names. Yes. You can swap it, but only if you've got it all worked out. Okay, so you will do the swapping and the convincing and everything else, and let us know about that. Yes.
You can swap partners.
You can swap partners if the person you are swapping with also has someone to swap with. ऐसा नहीं कि नहीं मुझे इसके साथ नहीं करना, मैं तो किसी और के साथ करूँगा, है ना? So the other person also should have an alternative, no? So you're in, see yourself as a unit, okay? You're in a group of two. You can't just act on your own. कि बस, I'm going to be doing this. It has to work for both of you. So both of you might say that we would like to team up with other people, and that's fine. But also don't hesitate too much. I know you all come from different places and different courses and all of that. But that's all right. You are doing this course together. I'm sure you will find enough in common to sort of allow you to make a meaningful sort of presentation. Alright? So don't worry too much कि मैं तो जानता ही नहीं हूँ इसको, ये कौन है, how am I going to work with her or him. It shouldn't be so daunting. Okay? Okay. So I just want to get your thoughts on this really kind of a question I'm just going to throw out there, which is the term Indian writing in English, is it a meaningless term? Is it an oxymoronic term? Can there be Indian writing in English? Is it even, if it's in English, then can we call it Indian writing? So what do you think about this? Is it possible to have genuinely Indian writing, whatever that means, in English? Or would you say that if it is truly Indian, then it cannot be English? And if it is in English, then it cannot be Indian?
If its essence is passed down to the language, I think that's the more important part. Whatever writing there is, the essence of what he's trying to portray and what he's trying to convey to us, if it has been translated well into the language, then I think it can still be called an Indian fiction.
Okay. So what is this essence?
The experience, the emotions he's trying to make us feel through his writings. If it is passed down in a correct way.
Okay. So you're saying that language does not matter?
Yes.
Yes, as long as the Indianness of the text is conveyed. Okay. Did you all hear that? So here the view is language doesn't matter. The essence, the Indianness can be conveyed in any language, and it doesn't, the original text or the text doesn't necessarily have to be in an Indian language.
What do you mean by Indian? What do you mean by it?
I don't know, you tell me, what do we understand when we say Indian? What do we mean?
in Indian writers.
Huh?
People can have different context with that.
हाँ, but मतलब
What are general notions around this? If we say Indian.
when we say when we say J.K. Rowling is a British writer, what do we then say that because she's a British writer she should write about British foreign policy or the British imperial adventure? No, na. She writes about what she wants, right? She chooses to write about Hogwarts. So why? So yes, but that's a very good question. That's a very very good question, because a lot of times when we think about Indian writing, we kind of expect it to be addressing a certain set of issues. So the first thing actually we expect of it is that it should be set in India and it should be about Indians. है ना? अगर Indian novel है, तो फिर at least Indians के बारे में तो हो, right? And if it's an Indian writer, obviously the Indian writer should write about Indian characters. So that's one kind of assumption. That's an assumption that we have. Yes.
But
What-
is it a wrong though, to expect to have like he's because we are saying that he's an Indian writer, so he would write about his experience or his perception as an Indian, and then how he's trying. That's why we are saying.
So that's the question. Now, what is it that is making you Indian? Is it the name? Is it your name? Is it the fact that you were born in India? Is it the fact that you write about India? Right?
I mean, the fact that we are born here, we get to experience our surroundings, and so we call this India. Like for example, like if somebody is living in Delhi, Punjab, so there's a certain experience that he's picking up, and through that experience, we call it as an Indian. That because it has been stayed here for long years, and the culture has been here, and that is being written through the language, the writings. So that's why I'm calling it that it's an Indian writing.
So yeah, so the difficulty really is about the interpretation of the term Indian, right? And what it should mean. Now, one of the most famous Indian, internationally the most famous Indian writer, Arundhati Roy, yes, and anyone else? Okay, but more contemporary was in the news very recently. Is attacked. Yes, Salman Rushdie. He really, in a way, he is the person, he is the writer who brought India on the world literary map. And it's Salman Rushdie, because of whose novels the world started taking Indian writing seriously. Now, वैसे देखा जाए तो what is it that makes Rushdie Indian? He has barely lived in India. He left India at the age of I don't even know, 12, 13. He lived the first few years of his life he lived in Bombay, but then he left for England, and then since then he has he's in his 70s now, and he has never come to live in India. And yet he is hailed as one of the greatest Indian writers of today. He does write about India, but he also writes about a bunch of other things. He also writes about New York and London. He also writes about fictional places. He writes about historical places. His most recent novel is about the Vijayanagar Empire, Hampi in Karnataka, which is which kind of flourished in the 12th, 13th century and then declined. Yes. So I'm just trying to indicate how problematic and how kind of slippery these categories are. हमने ये course तो बना दिया, very neat, clear sounding course, Indian writing in English. But there are a bunch of issues if you really try to tease them out. The meaning of Indianness. How do we understand Indianness? Are there certain things we expect from Indian writing in English? Do we, does it have to conform to certain requirements? And does every every other writer also have to conform to those requirements? Do we have the same requirements of an American writer or a French writer? Right. So here, these are just things to keep at the back of your mind as you start thinking about these novels. Yes.
I want to talk about Agha Shahid.
About Agha Shahid.
Agha Shahid. So he was an American actor, but he spent his childhood in India. So he write about his experiences in India, during his childhood he used to do.
But he was born in India, no?
Yeah. So.
He became an American national later.
Yeah. So will he be categorized as an Indian or something like that?
His works are very, very local, no? In fact, he would probably not want to be categorized as Indian because he writes about Kashmir. So, right, he would probably call himself a Kashmiri and not Indian and not American. Right? So, it's so much is about how you identify, what you identify with. A lot is about marketing, the publishing industry, what sells. How do you make people buy books? There are hundreds of books. You go to a bookshop. How do you categorize books? If you go to any bookshop, you'll see they are categorized in certain ways. So there is the category of fantasy literature, and then there is this category according to geography. Indian literature, South African literature. But very often literature does not conform to these national categories. An Indian writer may not want to write about India. In fact, one of the books I want us to read together, one of the books I want us to start with, is actually it's a novel written by an Indian, but it's not about Indians at all. It's set in California, and it's about Americans. It's about white Americans. So can we call that an Indian novel then? So these are questions. There are no answers. People are fighting about them all the time. Till date, writers who write in English are questioned at the Jaipur Literary Festival and various other such venues. There is always that question: why do you write in English? If you are Indian, why do you write in English? Do you think that's a fair question?
No.
How many of you think it's a fair question?
It's kind of debatable considering that if you're writing about Indian culture in general, it should be easily readable by the people in India. So maybe that's the reason people put this question out in the first place.
Okay. Also, there is also a sense that the English language itself, it comes from a history of exploitation, right? The reason you and I are conversing in English today is because of a particular sort of historical turn of events, no? Which is why in Britain right now they are not speaking English or Hindi or Punjabi, no? While we are not speaking Hindi or Punjabi in the classroom, we are speaking English. So it is a sign of a particular history. If you like, a particular history of violence and oppression, right? It is a history in which we have been subjected to violence and exploitation. So given that, then, is it still okay to speak and read and write in English, or should we throw English out of our lives because it reeks, it smells of our troubled past, no? What do you think? There's again, like I said, there's no right answer, but I would like to know, what is English for you?
English is a medium. I guess for us.
at within this institute, we have students from all over India, and not all of us are good with Hindi. So we can't pick up one Indian language and say that you all have to know this language. Like if I debate that I come from a Hindi dominant state and I want to be education to be in Hindi, someone from Karnataka can say, but I want Kannada, or someone can say I want Tamil. So there should be one language which we all study, all India. And I think English is the easiest language because at one point everybody does study English throughout the country. It helps to get us together, and it helps to make things more easy. So if something is making life easy, I think it should not be just thrown out. We can introduce more languages, multi-language curriculums, but it will still be easy if we all decide on one language and study it, and English is one of the easiest of them.
Okay, very nicely put, very nicely expressed. It's convenient. Yes, the English is the strength of that language is its convenience. Yes, it becomes a way for all of us to be able to communicate on a common platform, and therefore it has a place in our life. Would anyone disagree? Are there other thoughts, other opinions? Yeah.
I'm like audience specific. Like Japanese people, they have to converse among themselves. Like most of the literature is, if it is for the Japanese people, they'll prefer Japanese. They'll not prefer English. But since in India, most of the people speak in English. In the South India, they don't speak Hindi, and most of the all variety of people, like everyone, like from all ages, they rarely speak English, and like they prefer reading English. So English is not a problem. It depends on the audience. What it is.
Can you consider this on the part of marketing? Like in the sales and marketing part, like it's easier to sell in English than the marketing language.
Easier in the more profitable perhaps, because you reach out. You can reach out to a wider audience, and those questions are never removed from anything. So whether it's literature or poetry or art or whatever, and you might like to think that these are activities that are very this is so creative and artistic, and this has nothing to do with the forces of the market, right? Or this has nothing to do with money and the way it operates. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं. Everything is tied up with market forces. When you write a book, the first thing you want to do is publish it and sell it, no? If you make a film, however creative and wonderful and artistic it is, you want people to watch it and to make some money. Yes, so these considerations are never. Art should never ever be considered as this, this standalone ivory tower activity, which has nothing to do with the world around us. It is crucially and fundamentally tied up with everything that is non-artistic, right? So ये हमने अपने दिमाग में ही बना के रखा है कि this is art and this is real life. The two are constantly. Real life is never ever removed from art, from the production of art, the consumption of art. Like how do we consume art? How do we go and kind of buy a book or borrow a book? How much money are we willing to pay for a book? How much money are we willing to pay to go see an art exhibition? Right? So all of these are intertwined. But there was somebody else here who wanted to say something. I heard somebody had started speaking up.
Yeah, so basically
Yes.
I was saying that English has become sort of indispensable, considering that other the languages we use in India have not been developed to that extent. As in, you cannot find a lot of literature in that our vernaculars or maybe our regional languages. For example, in Hindi or in Tamil, we cannot find a lot of literature.
No, there's a lot of literature. There's a lot of literature.
The research papers and pieces.
Scientific literature, okay, but otherwise, literature. There is a lot, which is why I wish we all read more, in our own languages. But somehow that's in school. I think a lot of you are from the north. And in school you studied Hindi and English. So yeah, that kind of ends up being the default. But I wish we learned more Indian languages in school and were able to read more literature. And here, I mean, thank God for translation, so at least it allows us to read the great wealth of writing that is out there. Okay. So I wanted to get started about another issue, but let's leave that for our next class on Monday. Whatever reading material you are required to read will be posted on Moodle. Okay, and I'll give you exact sort of I'll tell you what sections we'll be discussing. Okay, so you'll be asked to read a specific chapter or a specific section from a longer work. Okay, I want to have a general sort of conversation about this before we get into our first text. But the name of our first text is The Golden Gate, and this is it's a novel by Vikram Seth. Has anyone heard of Vikram Seth? In what context have you heard of him? A Suitable Boy. That's the book he's most famous for. But just go look him up today. When you're free, just go look him up. Just see what he has, the kinds of things he's been writing. So we are going to start with that, right? And the text, etc., will be posted on Moodle as we go on. Is there anything you want to add about the clues? Nothing right now. Okay. So the attendance now.
Just call out your names. Just say present if you are here. Avna. Andy. Abhay. Aditi. Aditya Agarwal. Aditya Narayan. Aditya Yadav. Adnan. Advik. Akshta. Alpesh. Anuka. Amritesh. Ananya.
Ma'am, can you explain
Ankit?
the presentation?
Antariksh.
The 18 samples, which is presentation for
Anukriti is present.
Ma'am, all those who chose
Anupam?
to give the presentation the first week,
Anurag?
Because it's the first.
Anushka Chaturvedi.
Okay. So how do we?
Anushka Gupta.
You want to?
Email.
Arnav.
That's the.
Ma'am.
Aryan.
Ma'am.
Bout.
Yes.
मैम
आर्यन गरवा.
मैम सिर्फ इंडियन लिटरेचर की जरूरत है
आर्यन सुदान.
प्रेजेंटेशन में.
हाँ सिर्फ इंडियन लिटरेचर और फिक्शन.
फिक्शन होना चाहिए. इंडियन की जरूरत है. कोई भी फिक्शन.
आर्यन त्यागी.
प्रेजेंट.
अथर. आवनी. आयुष. जतिन. साहित्य. बंदरू साहित्य. बहुररा. बिंगी. बिंगी. Pronounce that right. चंदन. चेतन. चिंतन.